think oftentimes people want to put people in boxes, and in classroom settings or work settings or community organizational settings, you know, if you're a student, then it's boy or girl, and that's how it should be. If you're a coworker, it's male or female, and that's just how it should be. And that's not true. You know, in that setting, there are other people that exist there, and they may look a little different.
The burden of education, I think, is an important concept for people to understand when they are dealing with others of marginalized identities or identities that maybe they aren't as comfortable with or familiar with. So the burden of education is the concept that asking someone to explain to you their own identity, their own sexuality, something that you might not be familiar with, that is labor. You know, that can come at a personal cost, that can come at an energy cost, emotional cost. A lot of times when people are educating others, they have to use examples from their personal lives, things that they've been through, and it's especially an important concept to understand as a service provider. It can be a therapist, a doctor, or as a parent, a teacher, you know, someone who especially is in a position of power or a position of privilege compared to the person that you are interacting with. And so if someone comes in and says that I identify as non-binary, you don't know what that means. You have a couple options. You can ask the person standing in front of you who identifies that way to explain their identity to you, justify themselves, try and prove to you that their identity is valid, that it is a real thing, there are others like me that exist. Or on the other hand, you can go to Google, you can go to some local resources. Here in Richmond area, we have He, She, Ze, and We, which is an amazing resource. So if you take that option of seeking out the education on your own, not only are you lifting the burden of education from the marginalized person, you are also showing them that you're willing to do a little bit of the work. And even a little bit of the work can go a long way.
You know, if you can read about stocks and bonds and different things like that, you can take 5 minutes to read an article about the community, how you can assist the community, and in what ways that you can benefit from learning more about the community.
And I think it's also important to have in mind that expecting someone who is in the process of exploring or discovering their own identity to educate you on that identity, they might not know everything. They might be in the exploration and the learning process themselves. And if you put them in that position of having to be the authority, that can be really stressful. That can be really difficult for someone who maybe is still exploring themselves and isn't quite sure.
As someone in the community, if I'm the one who's having to educate everybody I come into contact with about my experiences, first of all, the assumption is that everybody's going to have the same experience when we don't.
It's disheartening a little bit because we've always been here, and times are evolving. Some are changing. You have an older community that is very set in their ways, and some of them are very adamant on their way and their way of thinking and not forward thinking. And the solution is respect.
If you want to know more about someone's identity or their own experiences, I think that it is completely acceptable to ask, but don't necessarily feel entitled to the response. Don't necessarily feel entitled to that information.
Anything somebody is comfortable sharing with you about their identity, it's a gift. Honor it. That's it.